And I am absolutely honored to be joined by Judge Susan Crawford, who is a Dane County Circuit judge who is currently running to be your next state Supreme Court judge here in the state of Wisconsin. Susan, thanks a lot for coming on and asking to join us here again and talk to Truth Nation.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kyle.
Absolutely. We're going to jump right into it. I know your time is tight, and I want to make sure you can, have as much time as possible to talk to Truth Nation. But Susan, can you share with everyone your background and your credentials?
Yes, happy to. So, I started out my legal career at the Wisconsin Department of Justice as a prosecutor, working to keep our communities and families safe in Wisconsin. Then I was a lawyer for a long time, first in state government, including working in the governor's office for Governor Jim Doyle. Then was in practice in Madison, representing regular Wisconsinites like your listeners, fighting
Mm-hmm.
for their rights in our courts. And then I became a judge in 2018. So that's what I've done since then, just making sure that everybody who appears in front of me gets their day in court, and that I'm protecting their rights under our laws. So now taking that to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, I want to be a judge who will interpret the laws fairly and impartially, and make sure that Wisconsinites' rights under our Constitution are protected.
No, I love that so much, and serving, being a public servant is quite the field to get into. What inspired you to get into that line of work, Susan?
Yeah, well, after I finished law school, I wanted to figure out a way to use, what I had learned to help people. And the best opportunity that I had was becoming a prosecutor, stayed out of law school. And that was a really important period in my career where I was working hard to do justice in our courts. Really proud of the work I did then. But I've had a really broad legal career, and have done work to protect people's constitutional rights and civil rights as well. And now, as I said, several years as a judge. So I've got, I think, exceptionally broad experience to bring to the role as well.
I appreciate you for sharing that. Now, as a potential Wisconsin State Supreme Court judge, what can you promise Wisconsinites about your judgment and what you would bring to the bench?
Yeah. Well, what I can promise is that I'll always be fair, and I'll make sure that I'm applying the laws to equally protect the rights of all Wisconsinites. And I'm not going to be there to try to push a partisan agenda. My opponent has said that that's what he wants to do on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court is not a place for politics. It's just a place for the law. And I'm going to interpret the laws independently, fairly, and impartially, and do what I believe is right for Wisconsinites.
I absolutely love that. Just apply the law, not playing partisan politics. And I think that leads to my next question, because your opponent, Brad Schimmel, is backed by billionaire Elon Musk, who has donated over $13 million plus to his campaign, and is currently running amok as an unelected official in Washington. So can you tell me what makes Brad Schimmel so dangerous for Wisconsin?
Well, I think you identified it in that lead in, Kyle. What's dangerous is that he seems willing to sell out justice to the highest bidder in Wisconsin. That's the richest man in the world, Elon Musk. Musk has spent over $25 million just in the last couple months on this race. He apparently thinks I'm, a danger to him and his business interests here in the state of Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm,
You know,
mm-hmm.
Elon Musk has a case that's working its way through the Wisconsin state courts that was filed by Tesla. They sued the state of Wisconsin just days before he started spending all that money. So he's interested. He wants to have some influence and some access over the judiciary in Wisconsin, and he thinks Brad Schimmel's the guy to do that for him.
Well, speaking of that case, what made you recuse yourself? Because I believe it was over the weekend or last Friday, you said that you would recuse yourself from that Tesla lawsuit. What exactly made you do that?
Yeah, that was actually not the Tesla lawsuit. That
Okay.
was a case that was filed against Elon. I think if we're talking about the same thing anyway,
Yeah, we
Kyle.
probably are.
There
Yeah, we
was a
probably
case
are.
filed against Elon Musk because he was planning to come to the state of Wisconsin and give away $1 million or $2 million.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Okay,
And
sounds
initially,
good.
he was promising it to people who voted, and then he kind of backed off that a little bit. But we know what he's up to here. He's trying to buy votes in
Well,
Wisconsin.
well, talking about buying votes in Wisconsin and giving away $1 million, I mean, it's intriguing to a lot of people. Why do you believe your opponent, Brad Schimmel, has been so silent on the subject?
Well, I think he's complicit with the whole thing. He knows exactly what Elon Musk is up to. They actually had a live streamed conversation a week or so ago. And Brad Schimmel started out his campaign saying he was going to nationalize this race. He was going to go after the conservative deep pockets to fund his campaign. That's exactly what he did. No mistake that Elon Musk is in this race. Brad Schimmel was out in Washington, D.C. over the inauguration, going to these high ticket price galas put on by conservative groups. And when he got back, he was joking around about the fact that he'd been on his knees begging for support. I said he was wearing out his knee pads and had to go to Menards and get some new ones.
That's what I heard. I support Menards, but I don't support doing that because I think the only people he should be begging, and not begging, is asking Wisconsinites for their vote and not asking people out in Washington to have control in our state. But personally, I had to say I'm a firm believer here, Susan, of that character matters and the company you keep matters. And I feel like it says a lot about you as a person in your morals, right? Like that's what character talks about. But your opponent, Brad Schimmel, has bragged about being on stage with somebody named Charlie Kirk, not sure if you're familiar, who has consistently made racially offensive comments about the black community. I don't know if you know this, Susan. I am black and I am offended. And also, he just retweeted something about rock artist Kid Rock, about him, being, celebrating him, who also is accused of using the N-word multiple times during an interview with Rolling Stones last year. What do you think all this says about Brad Schimmel's judgment?
Well, I have to say, Kyle, I am white, I'm Caucasian, and I'm offended. I don't abide by people talking like that. It's really damaging. It's damaging to all people, particularly black people that it's directed at, but it's really damaging to our community for having people who are expressing those kind of racist views. But I think it says a lot about Brad Schimmel that he would keep company with people like that. And I would not do that if I knew that somebody who was supporting me was talking like that. I would say no thanks and decline to have an appearance with them because it's not what I stand for. Those are not my views.
I appreciate that. I'm glad you have morals, unlike your opponent, Brad Schimmel. Now, also, there's been some Donald Trump talking in this election, and he's using the similar childish playbook of name-calling hardworking Americans like yourself who may not see the world the way he does. Now, he recently called you a liberal lunatic. Do you have any response to that?
No.
Fair enough.
Response, Kyle.
Fair enough. I just want to give you an opportunity, but more importantly, what would you consider success, a successful term while being a state Supreme Court judge here?
Yeah. Well, I just want to serve honorably, and I want to make sure that I'm doing the job well. And to me, doing the job well means that I'll interpret our laws and Constitution to uphold the rights of Wisconsinites for 10 years. I plan to work really hard as a justice on the Supreme Court. And, the other part of the job, and one that we don't hear about as much as making decisions in those important cases, is that the Wisconsin Supreme Court really oversees the whole state court system. And that is another really important job, and one that I have been really involved in as a circuit court judge, just by, being serving on a lot of different committees. That's extra work. It's volunteer work I've done as a circuit court judge, and something I'm really interested in because most cases that involve Wisconsinites happen at the circuit court level. Those are the county courts that hear all those cases, and they have to run well for our state to deliver justice to people in Wisconsin.
We are speaking with Judge Susan Crawford, who is running for the state Supreme Court race here in Wisconsin, a hotly contested race. Just a couple more here for you, Susan. I just want to know, in this election, why is this such a big election? Why is there so much attention? What is at stake during this election that will take place tomorrow?
Yeah, well, what's at stake is the future of our state, the future of our court, and everybody's fundamental rights and freedoms. And I think that the future of our court is at stake because my opponent is trying to politicize the court. He's really trying to turn it into an arm of the Trump administration. That's what he has said, that he wants to make the court part of a support network for Donald Trump. And we've heard his supporters, people like Elon Musk, saying that they believe that judges who rule against the Trump administration should be impeached, which is, not democratic. It's not
very scary,
and not the way that the court system or the justice system works in the United States of America. So this, really cannot be said too strongly. This election matters, and people should not sit this out. Don't give up your power. Your power is exercising your right to vote. And I encourage all your listeners to use their power tomorrow and show up at the polls.
Thank you so much, Susan. And lastly, with people getting out to vote tomorrow, can you just say the last reason why you would like them to vote for you when they head to the polls tomorrow on April 1st to be the next Wisconsin State Supreme Court judge?
Yeah, well, I've spent my whole career fighting to protect our communities, to protect Wisconsin families, fighting for our fundamental rights in our courts, first as a lawyer and now as a judge. I'm running this race, I believe, for the right reasons, which is to make sure that our laws and Constitution are interpreted and applied to protect Wisconsinites. So I am humbly asking for the votes of all your listeners today.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Susan Crawford. And good luck tomorrow as you have campaigned across the state of Wisconsin. Thank you for your time.